Welcome to my show. I am a guest here. Her name is Beth Castrode. Beth Castrode, how are you doing, ma?
I'm well. How about you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much, ma. Firstly, we know you are an award-winning author. You are also a book reviewer with an interest in the paranormal. Can you walk us through your journey, how you achieved it, the setback and issue you had, and how you are doing currently, ma?
Yeah. So I am an author, novelist, and I do have a book review website. It doesn't focus on the paranormal. It focuses on all kinds of small press books. But basically, I started out by early on. I was always interested in writing from when I was even a little girl. I used to write my own books, and I just kind of kept at it. And this is the book I have coming out is the fourth book of that I published, and it is a paranormal story. It's a ghost story that I've always liked those stories since I was a little girl. So I thought I would finally try to write one, and it was a lot of fun to do it. I really enjoyed the process. So, but but
All right, ma. Thank you very much for that, ma. Firstly, can you tell us the name of the website and can you also tell us the new book you are about to release in September this year, that's 2024, The Inhabitants, ma?
Yeah, so it's a book called The Inhabitants, and it's basically it takes place in a house that was built by an architect who believed that he could influence the mind through his creations, and the belief was that this would be a helpful influence. And but the main character who moves into the house, she's an artist, and she starts having strange experiences in the house. So she's kind of wondering, is it the house? Is it her? And also she gets a sense that there might there might be something haunting her in the house. So it's all these different conflicting things, and she has to kind of figure that out. And meanwhile, she's dealing with some of her own issues. She's just lost her mother, who she was very close to, so she's grieving that, and she's also trying to, keep her art, moving forward too. So there's kind of these different story angles that are coming together in the house. So that's it, kind of.
All right, ma. You haven't told us the website, ma.
Yeah, yeah, it's bethcastrodale.com. Is if people want to learn more, they can go there. So, yeah, definitely.
All right, ma. Thank you very much for that, ma. So I would like to ask, what do you think is the key element of a compelling ghost story? What do you think is the key elements of a good compelling ghost story, ma?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the things is that there is just life seems normal, but there's something off, and we don't understand why. Like one comparison I like to make is like if you went to a lawn party and everything looks normal, you're having having drinks and sandwiches and talking to people, and all of a sudden a glowing dog comes out of the bushes, like that's weird, like there's something ordinary, but then there's something mysterious that comes into the equation. So I think in the case of my story that there's a house and everything seems normal in certain ways, but then why is this, who is this housekeeper who seems to appear from nowhere and seems to know all this history of the house and just little oddities. And um, another thing that I think is just kind of having a little bit of a mystery, like trying to, what is, a lot of times the main character is trying to figure out what is going on. And, they try to, sometimes they might even doubt themselves about, what they're experiencing. And another thing I think is important too is that it seems kind of maybe a strange thing to say, but I feel like the writers really need to have empathy for their characters, because I feel like if we don't care about, if the writer doesn't care about what the characters are going through and doesn't care about what they're struggling with, it'll be hard for the readers to too, so you try to have empathy and try to help people relate to what the character is dealing with. So there are other things I could mention too, but I think those are some of the main things really. So, but
All right, ma. Thank you very much for that, ma. I would also like to ask,
sure.
characters, what type of character are essential for a ghost story, and how do you think they can be developed? Those characters, man.
Oh, you mean how to develop characters for a ghost story, you mean? Or
Yes, yes. Like how important characters are, and how they can also be, developed too.
yeah, very much so. They're very, very important. And I think, it starts characters are, having a strong point of view of a character and really being in the character's mind are really important in my books. And I feel like um, some of the ways that I characters kind of come to me in different ways. Like in this story, I had a really strong sense that I wanted there to be an artist and someone who inherits a house that they don't really know anything about. So I began with that, but then I tried to get inside the character's head in terms of why are they in this place? What point in their life are they at? What are they struggling with? And how might they, given the point of where they are in their life, how might they confront these different mysteries? So I don't know. I think every writer is different, but I feel like, what getting to know your characters, sometimes even, even apart from writing your book, like maybe you just jot down some thoughts about where they are in their lives or what they're struggling with. And some of those details might not make it into your book, but it helps you understand them and write a better character. So that's what I think.
All right, man. Thank you very much for that, man. Can you also, explain or you can, discuss with us the use of symbolism in ghost stories?
Oh, that's a good question. It's funny, like I'm funny in that I don't think in my head about putting symbolism in when I'm writing. I mean, it kind of maybe comes later, but I'm thinking of a book I'm writing now that has a supernatural element in it. And one thing that I'm noticing, I wasn't even planning this, but I've noticed that birds are coming up a lot. Like I noticed that one of the main characters, she's really drawn to observing birds, and she starts to feel like when she's going through a difficult time in her life that she kind of relates to birds, and then birds kind of have a symbolic act in the novel in that they represent um, some a creature who wants freedom and feels limited and is trying to fly and escape. So I feel like I didn't really think that through, but I think that that definitely is coming into play. And then I think about like classic horror stories. Like I'm thinking of The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. There's a lot of water and reflection, and there's kind of things like that that sometimes people think it might play into the idea that that story has mirrors and things that are reflected that might or might not be real. So definitely symbolism does play into the genre for sure. Definitely.
All right, man. Thank you very much for that, man. Um, I want to ask, ambiguity? How do you think ambiguity play in a ghost story? How does this play in a ghost story? And how do you think it can also be used effectively?
Yeah, that is another great question. I think like ambiguity is key because I think like whenever there's something spooky or paranormal, it's almost like I feel like there's no definitive answers to what is going on. Like there's no I think it's like a kind of a mysterious situation. And so sometimes I'm thinking in my novel, The Inhabitants, that sometimes the character, something happens or something appears to her and it's not exactly clear what it is. So the ambiguity of that allows her to explore in her mind what might be going on. And hopefully for the reader too, it's not like a neat thing that we know what's happening. Because I think if everything were neat and explained, it wouldn't be as interesting for the reader. So I think that's a reality of paranormal fiction, but also kind of what I think we find interesting when we're reading that genre too. So, but
All right, man. Thank you, man. Can you also discuss with us the difference between showing and telling a ghost story?
yeah, yeah. So a lot of times when you hear showing versus telling, that a lot of times, you know, telling might be saying something that, you know, the character walked into a room and was frightened by a shattering vase, a mysteriously shattering vase, and you feel like that's kind of telling. A more interesting or compelling way might be to really visually describe what the what the experience is like, describe the shattering, and then the feeling, the physical feeling that gives the character. It creates a more vivid experience for the reader, for sure. So I'm just gonna grab a drink.
Okay,
Having
ma. All right,
a
ma.
little
Thank you.
drink.
All right, ma. Thank you for that, ma. I want to also
Sure
ask,
thing.
like, there are some people that are just starting ghostwriting, writing. And how do you think experience, someone that has been experiencing ghostwriting, how do you think personal experience in ghostwriting, how do you think it influenced the way a ghostwriting will also be written?
You mean like you mean if I've had an experience like that myself, or
Yes, yes. Some people are just,
I see.
Mhm. How does it
Yeah.
affect with the way someone can a experienced person can be writing those stories?
Yeah. I mean, I think like I've had like a couple of weird experiences in my life, and I can't really, I still am like, I like to think of my mind as think of myself as, excuse me, as an open-minded skeptic, and sort of like I want to be open to ideas and experiences, but I'm also, okay, could that be explained by any rational means, but I did have a couple of experiences and I thought, this is so weird, I can't explain it. And I feel like in a way, like even if I never had any of those experiences, I'd still feel like I would be open to writing about the paranormal, because I feel like as human beings, we're constantly confronting mysteries and things that we can't explain. And I think it's especially interesting when those mysteries intersect with our emotions and our feelings. And, it's sort of, I think that there's some real power in that. And I think there's real power in not, sometimes it creates fear in us, but it also creates curiosity and a desire to sort of either see what we can explain logically or just live with the mystery, just kind of let the mystery be there. So,
All right, Ma. I want to ask this question. Have you experienced any ghost, real life ghost experience, or have you experienced, with this way you write these stories, have you experienced real life ghost experience or any voice that comes to your ear? Have you experienced anything like that?
yeah, yeah, definitely. It's funny, the stuff that I've written about, that my fiction doesn't have my own stories in, but one very strange thing that happened to me many years ago was that I moved into an apartment by the ocean, and you could hear the ocean at night, and it was very pretty, and I loved the apartment. But when a few months after I moved in, I would leave for my job every day, and I would make sure everything was locked. And I came home at night, and all the windows upstairs were open, and then the thermostat was turned all the way up as high as it could go. And this was in the summertime, so it was kind of very strange. Or it might have been May. It was like warm, bordering on summer months. Anyhow, I thought, my landlord, I thought like they usually let me know if they're getting the only people who had the key. And when I was going to mention to my landlord, he said, can you keep the windows shut? Like he was actually asking me to keep the windows shut. So I thought something weird's going on. And then a couple weeks later, the same thing happened again, the exact same thing. So I have no idea what it was, but ever since then, I'm like, who can explain such a strange thing? So that was one of mine. And I have friends who told me all kinds of weird, maybe you too have heard stories that you think, oh my gosh, that's so weird, you know. But I think a lot of us, right? If you sat down with a bunch of strangers, a lot of people would have stories, right?
Yes, yes. Yes, man. Thank you very
Hopefully.
much for that. Thank you very much for that, man. I want to ask you, what do you think um is the common mistake ghostwriters should avoid when writing a writing a ghost story?
Yeah. So I mean, it's funny. Like I think like it's hard for me to think about like mistakes in particular. I mean, I guess one thing I'd say from personal experience with anything I write is that I like to get input from other people before I give anything over to be, an editor or to a publisher. And so that means we all have blind spots. Like I know in my own writing, sometimes I'm so close to it that I can't see some problems. So I give it to trusted people who I trust to give me constructive feedback. And they might say, I like that character, but I don't really understand why they're doing this or saying this, or, this part of the story could be developed more. So I guess I would just recommend to anyone who wants to, especially if they want to get their work published, excuse me, is to just kind of, make sure that you get some input on it.
All right, ma. I want to ask, do you believe ghosts exist? Like, do you have that belief that it does exist?
It's funny. I feel like I can't say like I am open to the possibility, but I just can't say for sure. I mean, I can say that I am open to the idea that they're possible. I guess that sounds kind of like sidestepping a little bit, but I mean, it's sometimes people ask me this, and I think the way that I'll know for sure is when I'm dead. You know what I mean? Like maybe, I'll have a, you know what I mean? That sounds kind of like a dark thing to say, but but I definitely feel like I'm open-minded. I'm open-minded to like learning more and seeing, what is possible. And it's very possible that our conscious minds may survive our bodies in some way. There's been some research. Actually, in the United States, the University of Virginia has a division of perceptual studies that's looking at that very issue about whether consciousness can survive the human body. So I'm following that research, and you never know. I'm glad that it's being taken seriously and not just considered, oh, the crazy. So, but
All right, ma. Thank you very much, ma. I want to also ask, like, generally, what advice would you just give generally to maybe anyone who wants to get into ghostwriting, or anyone who is writing it, or anyone, or generally, or any advice you can just bring from your mind, ma?
yeah, yeah. I mean, one of the biggies is probably people who are interested in writing that are doing this already, but just reading widely, especially if you're going to write, like, say, if you want to write ghost stories, like read widely in that genre, and that's one of the best things you can do. And then just try to get out and write as much as you can, get feedback on it, get feedback on your writing, and try not to be discouraged. I feel like it's sort of so easy these days, whatever we want to do to, no matter if it's writing or learning how to play an instrument or whatever, just try to follow your heart and find something in it that it keeps you entertained and interested, kind of find the pleasure in it and enjoyment, and try to keep that going, because sometimes we can let the world get us down, and it's a good way to have an outlet that you enjoy.
Yes, ma. Yes, ma. Exactly. Thank you so much, ma. Lastly, there's a question I always ask. If there is anything you would like to bring back from the forefathers, from the ancestors, that you would like to bring back to our time today, what do you think that thing would be, ma?
You mean my own ancestors, would you
Yes.
say, or just general, or?
It might be general, it might be your own, the one you are comfortable with, ma. But just from the ancestors, you can
Yeah,
bring
let
up.
me think about that. Oh gosh. I mean, for me, this is very personal, but I wish I had more of the stories from my ancestors, because sometimes like we don't, I mean, I could say this for myself, like growing up, sometimes your grandparents or whatever, when they're alive, you don't ask them too many questions, and then they're gone, and that information vanishes with them, right? So I feel like, to the extent we can, I mean, I wish I could have, relatives from 300 years ago who could come back and tell me things, but even just your grandparents, like I feel like, maybe that's something to say to the younger people, is like, if you can, while they're still on this earth, ask as many questions of your older relatives as you can, because that you can find so many interesting stories and learn more things about your family and themselves. So I think that would be, just I would just wish for that knowledge and those stories to be there.
Yes, ma. I'm very happy for that. Thank you so much, ma. I really want to appreciate you, ma, Beth Castrode, for being on my show, for sacrificing this little time for us to have this conversation. I want to say thank you so much, ma.
Oh, thank you. It's been a real pleasure, and I'm looking forward to hearing more of the podcast.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so
Okay.
much, ma. Bye bye.
Hey, good. Bye bye. Bye bye.